Thank you. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday evening edition of the Miracle Hour. And my name is Jim. I'm hosted by a School for A Course in Miracles. Thank you so much, Lynn and Tim, for being the host, providing this powerful support network for us through COVID and beyond. Uh, really do appreciate it personally, too. Um, so this evening, we have a topic which the topic is projection makes perception. Projection makes perception, and it's a pretty well like embedded topic in the whole course. It's mentioned early as as the research pointed out. Tim and Lynn did a bunch of research, and it is mentioned early in the course, and it seems to be one of those things I've always thought of, especially with the alliteration. Hey, John, with the alliteration involved in it was like, oh, this has to be prophetic because it has alliteration, right? It's like projection makes perception. So, but I found that I never really gave it the full merit, like the full sort of study that I think it probably deserves up front. It probably uh, would save a lot of time if I'd have gotten that concept earlier in my work, and just to actually settle on that. I think it would have saved a lot of time for me, realizing that it's just exactly backwards is what we see. We see things exactly backwards and upside down, 180 degrees. And there is a very purposive reason for that, which we're going to go into in a minute. First off, I'd like to start out by reading from the text. We're gonna start out in chapter 21, right in the introduction, which is reason and perception. But if you will skip forward for a couple of pages with me to page 447 of the text, page 447 of the text, and just as an opening reading, Lynn, would you mind doing that? Would be paragraph 7 and then skip to paragraph 10 on page 447 of the text. It's paragraph 7 and 10.
Got it. Got it. The notes are nothing. Yet you have kept them with you, not for themselves, but as a soft reminder of what would make you weep if you remembered how dear it was to you. You could remember, yet you are afraid, believing you would lose the world you learned since then. And yet you know that nothing in the world you learned is half so dear as this. Listen and see if you remember an ancient melody you taught yourself to cherish since. Listen and see if you remember an ancient song you knew so long ago and held more dear than any melody you taught yourself to cherish since. And now the blind can see. For that same song they sing in honor of their creator gives praise to them as well. The blindness that they made will not withstand the memory of this song. And they will look upon the vision of the Son of God, remembering who he is they sing of. What is a miracle but this remembering? And who is there in whom this memory lies not? The light in one awakens it in all. And when you see it in your brother, you are remembering for everyone.
Thank you, Lynn. We'll just be with that for just a minute. Gently, gently come back to the room. And I thought that particular passage was actually taken from the section called The Forgotten Song. How appropriate that is, The Forgotten Song. Okay, so what I'd like to do is, we're looking at chapter 21, which is page 445. We're going back a couple of pages to 445. And just to look at this introduction again and just see, just so many beautiful things came out of it when I reread it. And I thought this right here was just everything. It's certainly, everything that the Course embodies right there in the introduction. Chapter 21, Reason and Perception. Introduction. Projection makes perception. This is particularly interesting, the way these next three sentences are worded. The world you see is what you gave it. Nothing more than that. But though it is no more than that, it is not less. Therefore, to you, it is important. The world you see is what you gave it. Nothing more than that. So it is important to us because we've assigned it importance. The importance of learning everything we've taught ourselves since the beginning of time, everything that we've taught ourselves to be in form. So it is important to us, and that's the world we live in. We do live in that world, with occasional holy instance interspersed to give us hope and to guide us along the right path. It is the witness to your state of mind. We've heard this all 1,000 times. The outside picture of an inward condition. As a man, line 6, as a man thinketh, so does he perceive. And that's exactly how we see the world, through the body's eyes, as a man thinketh. Therefore, the recommendation, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. So, perception is a result and not a cause. And this is I'm not sure why it took me so long to get this, that the difference between a cause and an effect. And so perception is a result, it's not the cause. It's the result of our thinking in the wrong mind. And it's not the cause of the world that we see, which that's how we largely think it is. It is largely the world that we see, but it is not. It is actually something we've derived. So this is projection makes perception. means that it was actually derived somehow, that it's not like it just happened to be the same. It was derived through projection, that our perception of the world. I did a little study on cause and effect, which was really, really helpful for me to see this clearly. The text in chapter 21 talks about it and says quite simply that this is a course in cause and not effect. This is entirely a course in cause and not effect. When you miscreate, you are in pain. This is from the text, chapter 2. When you miscreate, a great term, you miscreate, you are in pain. It's another way of saying make a mistake. You miscreated. You are in pain. The cause and effect principle now becomes a real expediter, though only temporarily. Actually, cause, in quotes, cause is a term properly belonging to God, and his effect, in quotes, is his son. So that's really all there is. That is all there is the Father, the cause, and us, his effects. And that's reality, that's atonement, that's where we're at. That's where we really do sit. This entails a set of cause and effect relationships totally different from those you introduced into miscreation. So in the act of miscreating, we've totally reversed it 180 degrees. Total flip, totally. That actually, and that's why I like the term miscreation, because it incurs more of a correction than a sin. So miscreation is something that we did, but of course we can always choose again. The text in chapter 3 says the choice, and literally the choice, it's a choice to judge rather than to know is the cause of the loss of peace. So our choosing to judge rather than to know is the cause of our lack of peace, our loss of peace. One of the illusions from which you suffer is the belief that what you judged against has no effect. So what we judge has no effect. This cannot be true unless you also believe that what you judged against does not exist. So I think obviously of illusion that everything that is going on in our brain we're talking about illusions, and 1,000 different variations of an illusion is still going to be illusion, and nothing we can do is going to actually impact anything because it's working. It's an illusion. So absolutely nothing we can do in time could possibly have any effect on it because it's all made up to begin with. This cannot be true unless you also believe that what you judged against does not exist. You evidently do not believe this, or you would not have judged against it. So we've made it something, certainly, to judge against. We have to make it something. It exists, it's real, it's a threat to us in body, and so we judge against it appropriately with that mindset. So to be able to see it from that standpoint of everything in the world that we've created is just another form of illusion, and we're just not moving it anywhere by trying to jump from one to the other. And you can do that as long as you like, but it'll never be fulfilling because it's an illusion. And so looking at it from that way, it's like, oh yeah, for sure, that easily, that makes intellectual sense. Perception is a result and not a cause. And that is why order of difficulty in miracles is meaningless. Everything looked upon with vision is healed and holy. Nothing perceived without it means anything. And where there is no meaning, there is chaos. And I think we're all pretty familiar with that. Anybody have anything? Cause and effect, perception, projection makes perception. Anything come up for anybody?
Well, just vision, what does it say? Everything looked upon with vision is healed and holy. That's an interesting line.
Yeah. Christ's vision, obviously.
Yeah.
Which we have to humbly, we do have to ask for that, I think. We have to be willing to not judge for that to come forth.
So I'm imagining when you're looking at vision, you're looking at the real world versus anything else.
Yeah.
So it would be healed and holy.
Yeah, and exactly the what I wanted to get to next too was, so projection makes perception thoroughly identifies the problem. It's great, that's the problem, and then gratefully there is a solution too, is where one problem, one solution, which comes along too, and that's exactly that, Ross, speaking about Christ's perception. Are we willing to take that, to accept that?
I really like Ken's metaphor was always sitting in a movie theater, and of course the projector is behind you on the in the back, and it's projecting on the screen, and but we get so absorbed in the drama of the movie that part of us doesn't want to believe it's not real. I mean, you got to suspend belief a little bit in order to get into the movie. Well, with this screen, with this whole world, the projector is our mind, and the mind's projecting one of two thoughts. And then we run around down here seeing the result of one of those two projections on this screen of the world. So, yeah. I mean, it's like it's when you read. I think when I read a sentence like projection makes perception, that metaphor of what I'm perceiving, and not so much specifically what I'm perceiving, but what in this world that I think I'm seeing, who are the bad guys and who are the victimizers and who are the victims. Like watching a movie, you're not going to watch a movie unless it's got drama, unless it's got victims and victimizers, heroes and villains. Somehow there's a resolving, or not always, but in the movie, you get into the drama. Well, here it's like, it's not so much we see stick figures, bodies running around, but we're always trying to figure out who the villain is, who the victimizer is. But that idea of that search for a victimizer is being projected from our wrong mind. If I'm choosing the ego as my teacher. Of course, if I choose the Holy Spirit as my teacher, then like Jim was saying, it becomes, I don't really see bodies as holy, but I see the holiness beyond the bodies. I have an experience that you're holy and I'm holy no matter what we do or don't do. So in that sense, that right mind gets projected onto the world too. World's just a mirror. When we're doing it with the Holy Spirit, we know it's a mirror. When we're doing the world with the ego, we have no idea we're just watching a movie. We have no idea it's all made up. We take it quite seriously. That's why we're watching it. And we want to take it seriously. Yeah. Raylene asked that question the other day about cause and effect that Jim was talking about. Like when we're with the Holy Spirit and we're looking at the world, we know what we see is being caused by the mind. But when we're looking at the world through the eyes of the ego, we flip cause and effect. We think the cause is everything that's happening in the world, and the effect is what we feel. Our response to the victim-victimizer routine. We think it's being caused by what we see in the world. We don't realize it's coming from our wrong mind. That's why I think the chart is so helpful. It really puts in perspective what projection makes perception mean. Perception is a body. Perception, believing I am a body and I'm seeing stuff out here. That is affecting me. Not having any idea it's being projected from this movie projector back here. It's a really simple metaphor, but it works. I mean, it works pretty well. Yeah. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Ross.
Another course student talked about shifting your perspective so that you see it like a book. In other words, I could take the book of Ross and put it up on the shelf, and it's just a book. I can flip to any page. Time doesn't exist. Will Ross be enlightened? Let's flip to the end and find out. It's just a book. It's a story. There is no Ross that's going to be enlightened. Put the book away. And so anyway, the book metaphor.
Yeah, great. When we're talking about that, whatever you do in an illusion really doesn't matter. It fundamentally has no impact on anything because it's still an illusion. Whatever we do in the dream really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is if we choose forgiveness, and that would usher in the final dream, or the dream that, the dream that takes away all the other dreams. Yeah, really good. Anybody else? So there is a reason, and Tim and Lynn had done this research earlier and had it just beautifully explained. There is a reason in it, and there is a purpose of projection, and it is twofold. Number one, projection maintains our chosen belief that we are separate from God our Father. So it not only reinforces that decision that, we are really a separate being out here in this world, just making it on our own. That it reinforces that belief is the first part. And the second part is we project to displace the source of pain outward. So onto other bodies, creation of the world. That's the second purpose for projection, is that it is actually twofold. One, maintain our chosen belief we're separate from God, and two, we can project or displace the source of pain outward. Very, very painful. We do not know what to do with that. So it is purposive, obviously, and the cause and effect. And again, we're going to, as I said, that thoroughly identifies the problem. The one problem that we have, that as separated minds. That's the one problem, and that thoroughly identifies it. And so getting back to page 445 is paragraph 2 under the introduction. Damnation is your judgment on yourself, and this you will project upon the world. See it as damned, and all you see is what you did to hurt the Son of God. If you behold disaster and catastrophe, you tried to crucify him. If you see holiness and hope, you join the will of God to set him free. There is no choice that lies between these two decisions. And I think that's what Tim was reinforcing is it's one or the other, heaven or hell. We're going to choose damnation, or we're going to choose salvation. And there is nothing between those two, which is actually good news. And you will see the witness to the choice you made and learn from this to recognize which one you chose. Am I at peace or am I not? The world you see but shows you how much joy you have allowed yourself to see in you and to accept as yours. I just thought that line just thought was so beautiful. It just struck me this time as, you know, as like just so eloquent and so perfect for describing how much joy you have allowed yourself to see in you and to accept as yours. And it is this, and if this is its meaning, then the power to give it joy must lie within you. So we know intellectually that the power to give it joy does lie within us. Yet do we often feel enabled to make that choice? Now what I call this solution. So we've thoroughly identified where the problem generated in our mind, and now the solution, of course, is in our mind as well, the one solution. And for that, I'd like to visit lesson 187 in the workbook, lesson 187, which is actually on page 354 of the workbook. I bless the world because I bless myself. And starts off right with the basic premise, no one can give unless he has. In fact, giving is proof of having. So in a worldly sense, you know, these two correlate, both worldly and in the right mind. We have made this point before. What seems to make it hard to credit is not this. No one can doubt that you must first possess what you would give. It is the second phase on which the world and true perception differ. Having had and given, then the world asserts that you have lost what you possessed. The truth remains that giving will increase what you possess. So giving of an idea is obviously sharing. Giving of an idea is obviously different law altogether. How is this possible? Paragraph 2, how is this possible? For it is sure that if you give a finite thing away, your body's eyes will not perceive it yours. And that's obvious in the world. Yet we have learned that things but represent the thoughts that make them. So an object or a thing is a thought with a name twice removed from reality. And then on the last sentence of that paragraph, it says it must be more. Line 7, nor can the form it takes be less acceptable. It must be more. Ideas Paragraph 3, ideas must first belong to you before you give them. If you are to save the world, you first accept salvation for yourself. But you will not believe that this is done until you see the miracles it brings to everyone you look upon. Herein is the idea of giving clarified and given meaning. And line 5, now you can perceive that by your giving is your store increased. So completely breaking with the law of the world, that you can perceive by giving is you actually increased. Protect all things you value. Paragraph 4, protect all things you value by the act of giving them away, and you are sure you will never lose them. What you thought you did not have is thereby proven yours. Yet value not its form, for this will change and grow unrecognizable in time, however much you try to keep it safe. No form endures. It is the thought behind the form of things that lives unchangeable. And as we've dealt with a lot recently on the end of sacrifice, this is truly the end of, I have to give up something in my worldly thought, in my body thought. I have to give up something. I have to wake up earlier. I have to do more work. I have to do something. There's always a sacrifice, and this is very foreign to our, to the body's eyes, is the idea that the end of sacrifice. Literally, we give up nothing to gain everything. Illusion recognized must disappear, and we must learn to laugh at the idea of sacrifice. And line 5 on paragraph 7, page 355 in the workbook. And sacrifice is an idea so mad that sanity dismisses it at once. Never believe, the next paragraph 8, never believe that you can sacrifice. There is no place for sacrifice in what has any value. Nothing you could trade for anything of value in this bargain, quote bargain. So the paragraph 9, if you'll jump down there, the lilies that your brother offers you are laid upon your altar with the ones you offer him beside them. Who could fear to look upon such lovely holiness? The great illusion of the fear of God diminishes to nothingness before the purity that you will look on here. And then the next line, particularly important, be not afraid to look. Because it says, if you go in and look, the blessedness you will behold will take away all thought of form and leave instead the perfect gift forever there, forever to increase, forever yours, forever given away. If we're not afraid to look, if we can ask for another way, there must be another way. Please, God, show me the way. Show me another way. Please, Holy Spirit. Paragraph 10, now are we one in thought, and for fear has gone. And here before the altar to one God, one Father, one Creator, and one thought, that's capital T for thought, we stand together as one Son of God, not separate from Him who is our source. Jump down to paragraph 11. Now are we blessed, and now we bless the world. What we have looked upon, we would extend, for we would see it everywhere. We would behold it shining with the grace of God in everyone. we would not have it be withheld from anything we look upon. And to ensure this holy site is ours, we offer it to everything we see. For where we see it, it will be returned to us in the form of lilies. We can lay upon our altar, making it a home for innocence itself. And both innocence and itself are capitalized. Who dwells in us and offers us his holiness as ours. So thankfully, there is a way to return. And when we're able to identify the problem and then squarely ask for another interpretation, not judge, to suspend judgment long enough to ask for another interpretation, we will actually see peace. And anything in form, nothing is above the law that will pertain and guide this, because everything will be straightened out in the end. And that's a wonderful experience when you go through that and realize that, and I'm sure, we've all seen that, is we have an unsolvable problem that all of a sudden every little part of it gets worked out and everybody's happy. And, it's like, how did that happen? Really, how did that happen? It looked unsolvable.
I've been thinking about Ross's metaphor, the book of Ross, the book of Tim. This is the book of us, and this is how we became. This is the book of Ross. This is the book of Jim and Tim, etc. This is how we got to be thinking we're down here holding the book. We projected all this stuff on it. I like that.
Yeah. Only we can start projecting the course outward, huh? Anybody have anything that came up? Any shares? Yeah, Lynn.
Well, I was really struck back about that everything looked on with vision is healed and holy, because I immediately took that to mean that I can look from the perspective of the Holy Spirit and see the world differently than it looks to be right now in my normal everyday way of looking at chaos and confusion. And when I think it was Ross said, well, that's the real world, I've just been sitting here as you were reading all those things, realizing that it is all of this healing is taking place in my mind. It has nothing to do with trying to solve any external condition, trying to make some kind of a situation work out a certain way, or to think that anybody's going to be better if this happens or that happens. It has nothing to do with that. And it's taking my heart is beating really fast, and I'm kind of shaking and almost dumbstruck by how internal this process, where it's really taking me. I really, it's like intellectually all this time I've been, doing what I'm doing, following the things as best I can, the practice, but I've had always in my mind that it's going to make my life here better. It's going to make the people's lives in my family better. It's going to make the world better. It's going to bring peace and harmony, and people are going to see that it's crazy to fight, and it has nothing to do with that. Absolutely nothing. And I just, I don't know, it's staggering to be getting closer to the implications of this in a very personal way, that it's not so much an idea, it's actually something that's taking place inside my mind. And the closer I get to realizing the freedom that's contained, the more I want to go in this direction. And it's just, I, I don't have words to say how freeing this feels to me. And I'm
Just change it to the mind or the mind.
mhm.
Because, like, for instance, the fires out here in California are making the sky brown. Well, my mind didn't do that. The mind did that.
Oops. Where are you? Oh, there you
Where am I? In
I
California.
pushed the
Ross disappeared. He read that book too much.
I put it on the shelf. It just went poof.
Early? No, I can't go poof yet.
What? There is no time.
Yeah, right.
What do you mean yet?
That's true. There is no yet. Yeah.
Yet.
I think Tony has some.
Oh yeah. Okay. I love this the introduction to this chapter, and I refer to it a lot because especially that first paragraph, line 7. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. And that's so important because we hear that all the time. People just want to change things. They want to put a Course in Miracles book in every send it to Congress or whatever, and it's going to make a difference, but it's not about that, it's how recognizing where the cause is and withdrawing that, like you said, and things just have a way of working out or not, but it wouldn't matter because it's how we see it, how we perceive it, that as a man thinketh, so does he perceive. So yes, the mind, made all this, but then we have to, it's how we interpret it that, whether we're choosing the ego or the Holy Spirit as our teacher. So if this is so important, like Lynn was saying, it really just changes everything. If you can really get that it's not being done to us, that, it's, we're the ones, the mind that made all this, and we're just seeing what we put out there, and we're getting back what we put out. So as we change, switch teachers, then we will see a different picture, or at least a different interpretation of what's happening. So anyway, that's all.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, I always like that analogy. It's like who are you going to invite? Are you going to invite the Holy Spirit, or are you going to invite the ego? It's like literally, the invitation, like the beginning of your day, the close of your evening. Who are you inviting? Who do you plan to invite?
Who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters. Ego Buster.
Yeah, anybody else say anything else come up for anybody?
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out on 355 paragraph 11. So he talks what we have looked upon. So is that the blessed, wait, or is it? He's referring to the previous paragraph, paragraph 10. So what is, I'll just ask, what and the it, we would behold it shining, what we have looked upon. What are we looking on? We're looking on,
Our one true self.
is that what it says up there?
And in 10 it does.
Oh, okay, the true self. So that's just co-creator with God. All right, good.
You're on page 355 of the text?
Yeah, because he does that a lot. He just throws out there what we have looked upon, and we would see it everywhere. And then I forget, well, wait a minute, what was the it and the what we looked upon? And then you have to go back to the previous paragraph to figure out what the what is and what the it is that we're looking on.
It's Jesus's tricky way of getting us to reread it and reread it and reread it. It works.
Tricky little devil.
I've got arrows now from the what up to back to self. I decided to put those arrows in there. I wasn't going to like try to go back and try to find it again. Two of the things that Ken would always emphasize is, in general, that it was always helpful to remind me, was one, this course is not addressed to Tim as a brain, as a body, as a personality. This course is really addressed to the decision maker, that internal part of me that's choosing in any given moment between the ego and separation, or the Holy Spirit and forgiveness. That this course is really directed to that seeming part of myself, not to Tim as Tim. The other thing is that this is never, ever, ever, 99.9% of the time, this is not a course about behavior, fixing the world, even fixing Tim. Seek not to, like Tony was saying, seek not to change your mind. Seek not to change the world. This is not a course about behavior. This is totally a course about who I'm seeing the world with, who I'm seeing Tim with. My sense of self. Am I seeing my sense of self and the world through the eyes of the ego, and then I'm off and running and I'm not even admitting I'm doing that. And I will find victims and victimizers. Or am I seeing the world and the stick figure in the world the way the Holy Spirit sees? So it's a course about perception. It's never, ever, ever. And if course students, and most course students, go down that road, and it's easy to do that in the beginning, for sure. But even today, most course students, most course groups still go down that road of this is about behavior. This is about fixing the world. Even though there's glaring lines in there, there is no world. Why would you want to fix it? Change your mind, not the world. I mean, somehow we phase all that stuff out. And then we become Crusader Rabbit. We're going to fix everything. We're going to make everybody happy. If when they find out about the course, they're going to start smiling. It's not what he's trying to get us to do. This is a course about perception. Always that. Only that. The behavior will come from it. I won't beat myself up so much anymore. I won't beat you up anymore. I won't be running around trying to find people to judge all the time. My behavior will automatically change. He says your forehead will look more serene. You'll smile a little bit more. You won't take things so seriously. That's a good thing. That was good for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. There's actually enumerated, and Tim and Lynn, you had put this on the website with the link, which was great. So if we go to page 96 of the text, it actually is gonna take us to the alternative to projection. The alternative to projection. So we know we've identified the one problem we have, and now we have an alternative to projection. It starts out and it says, any split in mind must involve a rejection of part of it. And this is the belief in separation. So that's how we had the first step. And it talks a lot, and it mentions a lot, and I like this term because it seems to be helpful. Separation and dissociation, I think is how that's pronounced. Dissociation, not disassociation, but dissociation. And then going down to the end of line 5, and that once it occurs, projection becomes its main defense and or the device that keeps it going, which we talked about already. The reason, however, may not be so obvious as you think. So what you project, you disown. The term disown is the mechanism that I project it out, and then I don't have to own that anymore. I disown that. Yet projection will always hurt you. It reinforces your belief in your own split mind. This is paragraph 3. Yet projection will always hurt you. It reinforces your belief in your own split mind, and its only purpose is to keep the separation going. So it is purposive in this seemingly destructive way, or inhibits us. It is solely a device of the ego to make you feel different from your brothers and separated from them. And then line 5 below says projection and attack are inevitably related. Projection is always a means of justifying attack. So we can really get in the game, then we can attack too. We have learned, however, there is an alternative to projection. The great news. Every ability of the ego has a better use because its abilities are directed by the mind, which has a better voice. And these are both voices capitalized. The Holy Spirit extends and the ego projects. So it's obvious what ego projects, but what does Holy Spirit extension look like? I don't know. It's obviously beyond what the Course is designed to show us. But it does talk about extension a lot.
I sometimes picture an extension ladder just because it's such an easy reference. I figure you can extend the ladder and it's still the same ladder, but it's just now it includes more. So I think that's, for me at least, a helpful, really obvious metaphor. Whereas projection, you're taking something, you say, get it away from me, not in my mind's backyard, out of here. you're hurling it over the fence of the belief in separation, right? Whereas the extension is like, okay, it's still the same thing. It's just now there's a bigger identity, more inclusive identity.
I almost think of a fire truck, like the extension ladder of a fire truck.
Well, he certainly doesn't spell it out here, but what's being projected all the time is the G word. It's not God. It's guilt. That's why guilt and anger are so connected. So, for example, we do this crazy thing internally where we choose the ego instead of the Holy Spirit. And then rather than fess up to that, we take that thought and we project it on the world, and we say the reason we're upset and feeling bad isn't because I did something that's stupid internally. I chose the voice of separation. But now look what they're doing. Look what the political bad guys are doing. Look what the COVID's doing. Look what the economy's doing. So we take that, and then, so we don't call it guilt very much, certainly not guilt in the news, but we certainly say who's to blame. And then we get mad at them. If they're causing all this distress, then I have a right. I have justified anger. I should be mad at them. So that's why this idea of projection of guilt specifically is I take my guilt for believing I separated. I project it out there, and then without even getting close to admitting I did that, I will find bad guys. And in time and space, there's lots of them. There's lots of them, and we will find them. But if it's true that they're just a projection of my own guilt, and it's got nothing to do. I mean, in time and space, people do terrible things, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, and they're guilty of it. But what's that got to do with me if I'm a son of God? What's that got to do with them if they're a son of God? If their innocence and my innocence is still intact, and I'm refusing to see that, I'm using that guilt projected out, and now I'm mad at them because they're the guilty party. So I mean, it's a direct correlation. You can't project guilt without getting mad at somebody or something for believing that they ripped me off. They stole my peace. That's why, I mean, this chapter starts, talking about anger for the first time, real time in the course. We're mad. I mean, and worse, it's not justified, at least not from Jesus' point of view. But it insists, I know, I'm upset for the reason I think, I know who's to blame, and they should be punished, and I'm mad. Justified anger. In the 12 steps, Bill Wilson said in one of his writings that he said alcoholics don't have the privilege or have the I can't remember the word, the something of having justified anger, because it would cause them all to drink. You can't believe in justified anger and not drink. You can't believe in justified anger and not be invested in the ego and not be hell-bent on punishing somebody. So, yeah, and so when he says, paragraph 2, line 1, what you project, you disown. You project your own guilt, and then you pretend it's not your guilt. Oh, really? I did that? I thought I was a nice guy. I thought I was mad because they were the bad guys, not me. And then that line Jim just read, paragraph 4, line 3, the Holy Spirit extends forgiveness. The Holy Spirit gives the blessing of and the awareness of we are still God's son in spite of what we did. And the ego projects guilt. Guilt is alive and well, but it's in you, not me. And I prove it to myself because I'm mad. I'm mad at you for doing what you did or didn't do. Nice trick. It's a nice trick. We tricked ourselves, though.
Really clever. Really clever. Gee, if paragraph 6, just one line, the first line of paragraph 6, I had to look at it. How else can you find joy in a joyous place except by realizing that you are not there? And I think, I think we used to say this more, deal with this more as like, the only person who's, not, the only one mind who's not in heaven right now is mine. I mean, everybody else is, like getting back to that responsibility of like, I don't have to fix the whole world. It's just one mind. It's just my one mind is all I have to, see correctly. And it'll be realized.
Mhm.
Lynn, Lynn, you saying something? Lynn Corona?
Oh, yeah, I was there a little bit ago. One of I think one of the clearest statements in A Course in Miracles about how we see is on page 231. I use it a lot. Paragraph 7. I said before that what you project or extend is up to you, but you must do one or the other, for that is the law of mind. And you must look in before you look out. As you look in, you choose the guide for seeing. Who do I want to be my teacher, the ego or the Holy Spirit? And then you look out and you behold his witnesses. This is why you find what you seek. What you want in yourself, you will make manifest. And you will accept it from the world because you put it there by wanting it. In other words, do I want to see the presence of the Holy Spirit, who I've chosen as my teacher, or do I want to see the witnesses to the ego? It's real clear and it's real simple. And all we have to do is admit that the world we're seeing is the one we want to see.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, you bet.
And on a similar theme, I'd like to close with unless anybody had anything else they wanted to share or anything.
I just wanted to share. I wanted to share that Ken did this really unusual little seminar. He went up to Northern California at one point to Maria Young's little miracle center, and he did this. And I never heard him say this anywhere else, but he was talking about the history of the 20th century and what he considered the two most holy books.
Mm.
And one, he said, interesting enough, was The Interpretation of Dreams by Freud. He thought that was, it just really changed everything. He said the second book, of course, was The Course. And he's also insisted in other places that The Course could not have come along unless Freud had laid down this whole idea of projection. That we took this internal stuff and we could put it out there and believe we had displaced it. It wasn't ours anymore. And without that awareness, without that laying that foundation, the Course wouldn't make sense to us. And the other interesting thing he said, this is kind of Carl Jung bashing, but he said if Carl Jung had picked up that thread and gone where he could have gone, we wouldn't have needed the Course, which is really wild stuff. So I just threw out, anyway, and the thing's called the Vedanic something. Do you remember the name of it, Lynn? And it's only a little 2 CD set.
The Freudian Vedanta.
Is that what it is?
The Freudian Vedanta. He was referring to the Course as the Freudian Vedanta.
And it's the only place I've ever heard him talk about that from that perspective of historically what he thought were the two most holy books. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Anything else? Anybody have anything? So the section, this is still in 21, just a couple pages beyond where we were. And it's under section 2, which is page 448. And it's under the title, or it's titled The Responsibility for Sight. What Ross was referring to. What is sight? The responsibility for sight. And what I'd like to do is just read that the little italicized section there after paragraph 2. In the middle of paragraph 2, there's an italicized section there, and that's just. I'd like to conclude with that. So we'll read that and just take a minute. Be with it. So the responsibility for sight. I am responsible for what I see. I choose the feelings I experience and I decide upon the goal I would achieve. And everything that seems to happen to me, I ask for and receive as I have asked. And if we could gently come back. I don't know if it's just my edition or I think Am is actually bold-faced on my edition. Is it in other people's?
Mhm.
Is it bold-faced?
Yep,
I never remember seeing that anywhere else in the course.
no, it is.
Jesus went through everybody's book last night and did that.
Yes.
I think because, you know, like when he wants something to stand out, he puts it in italics. But if it's already in italics, he made it bold-faced to kind of make it stand out. That's what I'm guessing.
I was just going to add that the word seems appears a lot of places and appears and seems and kind of reminder that everything that seems to happen to me is a reminder. It's like it's not out there. This morning I found somebody shared something on Facebook, an interesting thing about by C.S. Lewis about not making a big deal about, you know, political things that come and go. And so I posted on Facebook, and I was remembered a quote from physicist John Wheeler, who said that there's no out there.
Yeah.
Kind of fits pretty nicely with that.
Yeah.
The cause has never left the mind, right? No matter which thought system we're using. Yeah.
I remember when and this goes back to what Ross was saying. It's not that Tim decided. It's not Tim that's responsible for everything that he thinks he sees. It's the mind of Tim, whether the mind of Tim chose the ego or the Holy Spirit. So Tim doesn't have a mind, the mind has Tim, and then Tim is running around. So I remember in the early days at Roscoe, I had a real hard time not feeling like I was the victim of my decision maker. Like, why in the hell did the decision maker choose something else so I don't have to be going through all this? Sometimes I still feel that way. Come on, get with it, decision maker.
Even in your chart, Tim, behind you, it says Tim in space most of the time because your head covers the E, right?
Oh. There's a Tim in victim. That's the worst part. Not that I ever took that personally. Good job, Jim. Thanks.
Thank you all. Appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. Great
You're
class.
welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks, Tim. Good class.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mm.